You selected a knife from the kitchen and you went to your grandfather's room. You then cut his throat repeatedly with severe force. You stabbed his mouth so that he could not cry out, and his eyes so that he couldn't look at you as you killed him.
For the first time ever in English courts, they have shown the sentencing of a prisoner. This is due to a change in the law in 2020, and if it wasn't for coronavirus, we would have been seeing trials that would have shown sentencing before now. Judge Sarah Munro QC sentenced Ben Oliver to life in prison with a minimum term of 10 years and 8 months for killing his grandfather, who was 74 years old. The sentencing I've shown on a previous video, so there's no interruptions, and in this video we're going to explain what the backstory is and also what happened at the time of the murder. Sarah Munro had also been the judge at the case of Faraz as well, the 14-year-old that was stabbed to death in Newham, whose story I covered on the channel the other day. But a courtroom has heard how a man who was 25 years old and suffered with autism murdered his grandfather after learning about a family secret that had been revealed. A mother and uncle had said their dad had sexually abused them when they were children. Ben Oliver himself had served time for the rape of a child back when he was 16 years old. And he was acquitted of murder but admitted manslaughter of 74-year-old David Oliver in the Mottingham area of South London on January the 19th last year. The court heard that he sent a text to his mother saying, "Mum, I've killed Grandad, I love you." The judge Sarah Munro said, Ben Oliver's granddad was bedbound and he was helpless as well, and you stabbed him in the mouth so that he couldn't speak and slit his throat twice. Your intention was to murder your granddad, and you were very angry at learning of the allegations of historical sexual abuse of your relatives. His own mother and uncle had also conspired to murder the granddad on several occasions, but they didn't go through with it. The defendant used the kitchen knife in the brutal attack after he'd lay down with his nan earlier on in the evening, and then he went to confess to her what he did. Judge Munro said that Oliver had a very troubled family background history, and his mother had left him after she became lesbian and moved in with another partner. He's also on the autistic spectrum and suffers with depression. She had noted that he loved his grandparents until he found out about the allegations of sexual abuse and also violence against his own grandmother. They said that the love for his grandmother made him have tunnel vision, and he was determined to kill his granddad in the most ferocious way possible. Oliver inflicted 21 stab wounds to David's face alone and 7 to the torso before telling his grandmother, "He cannot hurt you anymore." The judge said in the courtroom that in your case I consider the seriousness of the offence does justify life sentence even though it is manslaughter. So that is the very highest sentence you can get is 25 years for manslaughter. The jurors said that he grew up in difficult and troubled times and he was convicted of sexual offences against a young girl when he was 15. He was released from youth detention in 2019 in September, and he was on licence at the time that he killed his granddad. In the months leading up to the killing, he became aware of sexual abuse allegations against his granddad, and he also learned that he treated his wife badly and had many affairs. And on the night that it happened, Oliver had snapped, the court heard, and he felt he had no other option but to murder his granddad and to stop what had happened in his family, and in some bizarre sort of way to maybe try to find peace for what he had also done. The broadcasting of the sentencing was announced by the Ministry of Justice on Wednesday and is a landmark moment for open justice, some people have said. The video footage will only be shown in high-profile court cases and will allow the public to hear the judge's explanation and reasoning behind the sentences. Witnesses, victims and jurors will also be hidden as well, and the Deputy Prime Minister, Lord Chancellor and Justice Secretary Dominic Raab said, opening up the courtroom to cameras to film the sentencing of some of the country's most serious offenders will improve transparency and put more confidence in the justice system. Some critics have said that only showing a bite-sized amount of the trial will also cause some confusion and could be problematic. It was only announced the day before that Ben Oliver's trial would be released to the public. So I really appreciate you joining me for this story, and please don't forget to check out the full sentencing footage on the previous video and leave a comment below and share and @ on Twitter if you want to repost. I'll be back again very shortly with some more news, and don't forget to subscribe if you aren't already.
You received a 6-year custodial sentence for a number of offences, including rape and an offence of in possession of indecent images of children. I pause there to record my firm view, as supported by the psychiatric evidence, that the offending in which you were involved was learned from your own childhood experiences and your lack of empathy or understanding was exacerbated by and rooted in your autism. You have no other convictions. However, you were on licence from that sentence when you killed your grandfather. Days before you were sent to custody in 2016, your grandfather had a stroke which left him paralysed, save for the partial use of his right side. He was largely bedbound and looked after by your grandmother, supported by daily carers. While you were serving your sentence, you were the victim of violence at the hands of other prisoners. You were prescribed medication for your autism and depression whilst you were in custody. You were released on licence in September 2019. While you were still in custody, allegations came to light that your grandfather had himself committed child sex offences. Both your mother and your uncle expressed a serious desire and formed intent to kill your grandfather